All right, buckle up, everybody, because
Right.
today we are diving deep into the wild world of Hollywood pitch meetings.
Yeah, we're going to unlock the secrets of becoming good in the room.
You know that phrase that everyone throws around?
Exactly.
And to guide us on this journey, we have Angelo Bell's book,
How I Became Good in the Room.
which is such a great title.
It really is.
Now, whether you're a seasoned screenwriter or just fascinated by the behind the scenes of how TV gets made,
Right.
this deep dive has something for you.
For sure.
And what I think is so interesting about Angelo's story is that he's not like this slick Hollywood insider, you know?
Totally. He's like the opposite of that stereotype.
Yeah, he was actually terrified of pitching.
Yeah.
And get this, avoided in-person meetings for a whole year.
An entire year.
Can you imagine? A whole year of dodging those face-to-face pitches.
That's wild.
Mhm.
But he transformed himself, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
Like, how did he go from being so afraid to actually thriving in those pressure cooker scenarios?
Right, because good in the room is not just about like charisma or smooth talking your way into a yes.
Exactly. So before we get into Angelo's journey, let's actually break down what that phrase even means.
What does it actually mean to be good in the room?
It's got to be more than just having a killer idea.
Oh, for sure. It's
Wow.
deeper than that.
Yeah.
Angela describes it as this combination of preparedness, understanding the industry's needs, and honestly, a whole lot of hard work.
It sounds like you really have to put in the time.
Definitely. You
Yeah.
can't just phone it in. He's really big on this idea of not just being passionate about your project, but thinking like a producer.
Okay, so I'm hearing this phrase, think like a producer, a lot.
That's key.
But what does that actually look like?
What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, can you give me like a concrete example?
Absolutely. Okay, so imagine you're pitching a show about, let's say, a team of treasure hunters.
Okay, I'm in.
If you're thinking like a writer, you're focused on those intricate details of the characters' backstories.
The exotic locations.
Yeah, the thrilling twists and turns of the plot.
All right, all the fun stuff.
But if you're thinking like a producer, you're also asking yourself questions like,
Like what?
what makes this show stand out in the current TV landscape? Who is the target audience? And where would it fit within a network's programming schedule? What are the potential merchandising opportunities? You're not just selling a story, you're selling a potential hit.
Oh, that makes so much sense. You're
Yeah.
basically putting on your executive hat
Exactly.
and analyzing your own project from their point of view.
You got it.
So, Angelo, who was initially so afraid of pitching, how did he even get his foot in the door?
His path was anything but conventional. He started with short films.
Like everyone else, right?
Well, yeah, but he embraced those like scrappy guerrilla filmmaking tactics.
Oh, I love that. Shooting in unauthorized locations, stretching those tiny budgets to their limit.
Totally. He even used Craigslist to find crew members and build up his production company's credibility.
Craigslist, seriously?
Oh, right? Talk about resourceful.
He was definitely thinking outside the box.
He understood that building a career in this industry is more than just raw talent. It's about hustle resourcefulness and proving that you can deliver even when things get tough.
That's such a great point. And that experience laid the foundation for his later success pitching to networks.
For sure. But even with all that hustle, I bet he hit some roadblocks along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
He talks about his early experience at the American film market, which is like this massive marketplace for film and television projects.
I've heard of that.
His first attempt at pitching there was a total disaster.
Oof. I can feel the cringe from here.
He wasn't prepared, he didn't understand the dynamics of the market, and he walked away feeling totally defeated.
Oh man, I can relate. But it sounds like he didn't let that setback define him.
Not at all. He used it as a learning opportunity. He realized that even being good in the room is a skill that needs to be honed and refined.
It's not something you're just born with.
Right, and he's really big on this idea of constantly evolving and being willing to learn from your mistakes.
Which is so important. It's easy to get discouraged when things don't go as planned.
Definitely. But it's those setbacks that often push us to grow.
Exactly. So how did Angela go from bombing at the American film market to confidently pitching network execs?
I feel like there's more to this story than just practice makes perfect.
There is. And this is where his journey takes a really interesting turn. Remember how we talked about him avoiding those in-person pitches for a whole year?
Yeah, he submitted like 20 written pitches because the thought of being in the room was just so scary.
Well, during that year, he was actively working on himself. He was consciously shaping his communication style, drawing inspiration from some pretty unexpected sources.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
He was observing successful communicators, reading articles on improving social skills, even taking cues from his experiences in completely different fields,
Like what?
like his hospital internship and leading church groups.
Wait, hold up. He was prepping for Hollywood pitches by studying church leadership and hospital rounds. Right. It sounds crazy. But what Angelo realized is that the fundamental principles of effective communication are universal.
Oh, that's interesting.
Whether you're leading a congregation, comforting a patient, or pitching a TV show, it's all about connecting with your audience, building trust, and conveying your message in a clear and compelling way.
So he was basically cross-training his communication skills, using these diverse experiences to build up his confidence and ability to connect with people.
Exactly. And that's a key takeaway for anyone looking to improve their own communication skills, no matter the context.
So think about the experiences you've had, the skills you've developed, and how you can leverage those to be more effective in any room you find yourself in.
Right. It's about taking those tools and applying them in new ways.
That's so powerful. It's like he was building a toolkit of communication skills, drawing from all these different areas of his life. But I'm still curious, how did he finally overcome his fear of pitching? Like, what was the turning point?
Well, according to Angelo, the real breakthrough came when he shifted his mindset. He realized that his fear was stemming from a focus on potential rejection.
That fear of not being good enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he consciously decided to reframe his approach. He started focusing on the value he was bringing to the table, the passion he had for his projects, and the opportunity to connect with executives who shared his love of storytelling.
So it was about shifting his focus from the fear of failure to a genuine enthusiasm for his work.
You got it.
Ah.
And that shift in mindset made all the difference.
I can see that. He was no longer approaching pitches as like a test he had to pass,
Right. It wasn't about proving himself.
but as a chance to share his vision and connect with like-minded people.
Exactly. It was about the collaboration, the potential for something great.
It sounds like that took a lot of self-awareness.
It did. He had to really dig deep and understand where his fear was coming from,
And then consciously choose to approach those meetings from a completely different perspective.
which is something we can all learn from.
Okay, I'm totally on board with this mindset shift. But let's get real for a second. This is Hollywood we're talking about. Rejection is basically a rite of passage.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It comes with the territory.
So how did Angelo handle those inevitable no's?
He had strategies for bouncing back, and it all comes back to that think like a producer mentality.
So it's not about getting discouraged, but using those rejections as fuel.
Exactly. He saw them as valuable feedback, a chance to learn and refine his approach.
But how do you actually do that? Like, how do you turn a no into a yes down the line?
He recommends asking yourself some key questions after a rejection. Like, what were the specific concerns raised? Was it the concept itself, the target audience, the budget, or something else entirely? Is there anything I can adjust or clarify in my pitch to better address those concerns?
So you're basically dissecting the feedback
You're analyzing it like a producer would.
to figure out what went wrong and how you can improve.
Exactly. You're turning that rejection into a strategic tool for improvement.
That's brilliant. And Angelo takes it even further. He suggests that sometimes the best way to think like a producer is to literally put yourself in the executive's shoes. Like, try to see things from their perspective.
Ask yourself, if I were greenlighting this show, what would I need to see to be convinced?
Wow, that's a powerful exercise. It forces you to step outside of your own creative bubble.
And really consider the business realities.
Yeah, like, what does it take to actually get a show made?
And by doing that, you can start to anticipate potential objections, refine your pitch, and ultimately present your project in a way that's both creatively compelling and commercially viable.
It's about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly, where creativity meets strategy.
Okay, we've covered Angelo's unconventional journey, his think like a producer mantra, and his strategies for handling rejection.
We've laid the groundwork.
But now I'm dying to hear about the actual pitch meetings.
The nitty-gritty?
Yeah. Did he share any like particularly memorable moments or lessons learned from those high pressure encounters?
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
And those stories are where his advice really comes alive.
This is what I've been waiting for.
All right, let's dive in.
Tell me everything.
Well, one story that really highlights the importance of clear communication involves a colleague of Angelo's who completely misinterpreted feedback from an executive.
Oh no, this sounds familiar.
They were pitching a drama series, and the executive was trying to illustrate the importance of genre consistency.
Okay, makes sense.
And they used a popular spy show as an example.
Got it. Nothing wrong with that.
But Angelo's colleague took the feedback literally.
Oh boy.
Instead of understanding the broader point about genre, They thought they were being asked to rewrite their entire drama as a spy thriller.
Wait, seriously, they thought they had to scrap their whole concept and start over?
But they were seriously considering it.
Wow, that's hilarious, but also kind of terrifying.
Right. It's a classic example of how miscommunication can derail a pitch, and it highlights the importance of clarifying questions.
Yeah, don't be afraid to speak up and make sure you're on the same page.
Much better to double-check than to charge ahead with a misunderstanding.
Totally. So communication is key. But what about those moments when things go wrong, even when everyone is understanding each other perfectly? Did Angelo ever have any of those, like, oh, crap, moments during a pitch?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He tells this great story about a pitch meeting where he was literally sweating bullets.
Oh, no, every pitcher's nightmare.
And it wasn't even nerves. It was the blazing Burbank sun beaming directly onto him.
Oh, that's brutal. Did he just try to ignore it and power through?
At first he did, but the sweat was getting so distracting he knew he had to address it. So right in the middle of his pitch, he just turned to the executives and said, "God damn, it's hot in here."
He didn't. I love that. What happened?
The executives burst out laughing. They apologized for the sauna-like conditions and even offered him a napkin to dry off.
That is the best possible outcome.
I know, right? It completely broke the tension, and the rest of the meeting went much smoother.
It's such a great example of how a little self-awareness and humor can go a long way in those high-pressure situations.
It humanizes you.
It makes you relatable.
And honestly, it can be a real advantage.
It shows you're not afraid to be yourself.
Exactly. And it reinforces Angelo's point that being good in the room isn't about being perfect or always having the right answer. It's about being adaptable, authentic, and willing to roll with the punches.
I love that. So much wisdom in that one story.
Right. It's a great reminder that we're all human, even in those high-stakes Hollywood meetings.
These case studies are pure gold. We're learning so much about the art of pitching and the importance of embracing those unexpected moments.
And we're just getting started.
But before we move on, I'm curious about that female colleague you mentioned earlier.
The one Angelo started bringing to meetings.
Yeah, because he noticed that the executives responded well to her.
Oh yeah, that's a fascinating insight into the dynamics of those meetings.
Did he ever elaborate on why he thought that was?
He did, and it's a really interesting glimpse into the often unspoken dynamics at play. He noticed that the executives, who were predominantly male, seemed more receptive to his colleagues' initial approach.
That's really interesting. Was it her pitching style, her personality, or something else entirely?
He doesn't explicitly state what it was, but he suggests that it might have been a combination of factors,
Okay, like what?
like her communication style, her energy, and even the fact that she brought a fresh perspective to the table.
Interesting. So it wasn't necessarily a conscious strategy on Angela's part,
Not at first.
but he recognized the impact she had on the room and decided to leverage that dynamic.
Right, he was paying attention to those subtle cues,
And adapting his approach accordingly.
which is a really smart move.
It's a reminder that there are often these like unspoken dynamics at play in any professional setting.
Oh, for sure.
And being aware of those dynamics can be a valuable tool.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
about reading the room, understanding the players, and adjusting your game plan accordingly.
It makes you wonder how much of being good in the room is about mastering that art of reading those unspoken cues
It's definitely a big part of it.
and adapting your approach accordingly.
It's about being flexible and responsive to the situation.
This has been such an incredible deep dive into Angelo's world so far.
We've just scratched the surface.
We've explored his unconventional journey, his think like a producer mantra, and his strategies for handling rejection.
But there's so much more to uncover.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll unpack Angelo's specific advice on crafting that killer pitch.
And navigating the network labyrinth.
You won't want to miss it.
We'll be back. Welcome back to our deep dive into Angelo Bell's How I Became Good in the Room.
Last time, we kind of explored Angelo's crazy journey.
Right from those early days of filmmaking,
Yeah, and really unpacking that whole think like a producer mindset.
which is so crucial.
Absolutely. But now I want to get down to like the brass tacks.
Yeah, let's talk strategy.
How do we actually craft a pitch that grabs those network execs by the eyeballs and doesn't let go?
Because we've got our foot in the door, we've done our homework now. How do we package this brilliant idea of ours
Yeah.
into something they can't resist?
Yeah, I need those insider secrets.
Angelo spilled the tea. Well, Angelo stresses that a pitch has to be more than just a summary. You need to create an experience.
Okay, I like that.
Make them feel the potential of your project like they're already living it.
So it's not about just reciting the script like word for word.
Definitely not. You're selling a vision, And Angelo breaks it down into 3 key elements:
Ooh, I love a good framework.
the hook, the concept, and the execution.
Okay, let's break those down. What exactly makes a killer hook?
The hook is that one-liner, that irresistible nugget of intrigue that makes the listener instantly crave more. It's the bait that lures them into your world.
Got it. So it's like a supercharged logline.
Exactly. Think of it like a headline that makes you stop scrolling on social media. It needs that punch.
So give me an example.
Angela gives the example of the movie Jaws, the hook. A giant, great white shark terrorizes a small beach town.
Okay, yeah, you instantly know what the movie's about.
And you're hooked.
You're in, I'm terrified, but I'm in. Okay, so you grab their attention with the hook, then you reel them in with the concept. So what does that entail?
The concept expands on the hook, fleshing out the core idea. Give them the what-if scenario, the premise that drives the narrative. But keep it concise.
So don't get bogged down in like all the little details.
Right, don't get lost in the minutia. Maintain that momentum, that intrigue. The concept is about the big picture, what makes your project unique and, importantly, marketable.
So you're giving them a taste, not the whole 3-course meal.
Exactly. You're whetting their appetite.
Okay, so they're hooked by the premise, they understand the concept. Now, what about the execution? Is this where we finally get into all those juicy details?
This is where you show you're not just a dreamer, but a doer. You've thought through the logistics, talk about the tone, the style, who you see as the audience, maybe even sprinkle in some casting ideas.
Or mention some similar shows that have been successful.
Right. You want to show them that you understand their world.
It's like you're not just pitching a story, you're pitching a plan.
Angelo compares it to pitching a gourmet burger to a vegan restaurant.
Okay, that's a vivid image.
No matter how delicious the burger is, it's just not going to fly.
You gotta know your audience.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture. It's not just about having a great story. It's about understanding the business side, the target audience, the whole package. It all comes back to thinking like a producer.
You nailed it. Even if you're a writer at heart, during that pitch, you need to put on your producer hat.
But how do you actually make that shift? Think like a producer sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do it?
Ask yourself some tough questions.
Like what kind of question?
Like, how will this show generate revenue? What kind of advertisers would be interested? What makes it stand out from the competition?
Okay, so you're basically doing a self-audit of your own project.
But from a completely different perspective.
Yeah, like from the executive's point of view.
Exactly. And by doing that, you're not just showcasing your creative vision, you're demonstrating that you understand the business of television.
You're speaking their language.
Right. And that can make all the difference.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got our pitch structure down, we've got our hook concept and execution all lined up. But what about the actual delivery? Any tips on presenting these ideas in a way that's engaging and memorable?
Visuals, visuals, visuals.
Ooh, I love a good visual aid.
Angela's a big proponent of using pitch decks, mood boards, anything that brings your vision to life.
And don't underestimate the power of storytelling even within your pitch.
Right, because you're essentially telling a story about your story.
So it's like instead of just listing plot points, you frame them as a narrative.
Use vivid language.
Yeah.
Create a sense of urgency. Make those execs feel like they're experiencing the story alongside you.
Okay, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. But
Right.
let's be real for a second. No matter how well prepared you are, pitching can be nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah, those pre-pitch jitters are real.
Any advice for overcoming those nerves?
Angelo has a surprisingly simple tip. Acknowledge them. Don't try to suppress them. Admitting you're a bit anxious even to the executives can actually diffuse the tension.
Really? Isn't that kind of counterintuitive?
It might seem that way, but it can create a more genuine connection.
So you're taking the power away from the fear by just naming it.
Exactly. And you can even use those nerves to your advantage.
Oh, so?
Channel that nervous energy into enthusiasm and passion. It can make your pitch even more compelling.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could work. But let's say you've nailed the pitch, you're feeling good, and then bam, a curveball. An unexpected question, a challenging piece of feedback. How does Angelo recommend handling those moments?
Stay calm, focused, and adaptable.
Easier said than done.
I know. But the key is to listen carefully to the feedback, even if it's tough to hear, and try to understand the underlying concerns.
So no getting defensive or digging in your heels.
It's not a battle. It's conversation.
Right, you're on the same team.
Exactly. The goal is to find common ground and show that you're open to collaboration.
To work together to create something that's both creatively fulfilling and commercially viable.
Angelo's really reframing the whole pitch dynamic, isn't he? It's not us versus them.
It's a partnership.
And that collaborative approach can be incredibly effective. It's about building trust, demonstrating your expertise, and ultimately creating a win-win for both sides.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground here, from crafting that killer hook to navigating those curveball questions.
We've really broken it down.
But what happens after the pitch meeting? Any tips on keeping the momentum going?
A prompt and personalized thank you note is essential.
Like within 24 hours?
Exactly.
Right.
Reiterate your enthusiasm. Address any specific points raised during the meeting. And remember, this industry is all about relationships.
So don't be a stranger.
Right. Stay in touch even if you don't hear back right away.
Persistence is key even after you've left the room.
Building those connections and staying top of mind can make all the difference. Because you're not just selling a project, you're selling yourself.
As someone they want to work with.
Exactly. Someone who's got the talent, the vision, and the drive to make great things happen.
This has been an amazing deep dive into Angelo's pitch playbook.
We've gone deep.
But before we wrap up part 2, I have to ask. You mentioned earlier that Angelo actually managed to land not 1, but 2 pilot deals.
Which is incredible.
It's amazing. But then neither of them went to series.
The ups and downs of Hollywood.
Did he ever talk about what happened? Like, what went wrong?
He doesn't get into specifics, but he kind of alludes to how fickle the industry can be.
Yeah, like sometimes it's just not in your control.
Right. Even with a perfect pitch and a stellar team, things can happen.
Like what?
Network politics budget cuts a change in leadership.
So even with all the hard work and the preparation, there's still an element of luck involved.
There is, but as Angelo emphasizes, you can dramatically increase your chances by focusing on what is in your control.
Your craft, your relationships, your persistence.
Your willingness to adapt.
So it's not about giving up. It's about learning from those setbacks and coming back even stronger.
Exactly. Angelo's message is one of resilience and hope.
This has been fantastic. I feel like I've gotten a crash course in Pitching 101.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But there's still so much more to uncover.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started.
In part 3, we'll actually dissect those fascinating case studies Angelo shares.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty of those real-life pitch meetings.
The do's and don'ts, the triumphs and the disasters.
You won't want to miss it.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into how I became good in the room.
And this is the part I've been looking forward to.
Me too. The case studies?
The real-life examples where Angelo's advice comes alive.
We're talking do's and don'ts.
Triumphs and disasters.
The stuff that makes you cringe and cheer all at the same time.
It's like watching a masterclass unfold.
Totally. So let's jump right in. You mentioned earlier this writer who was so attached to their script they couldn't actually pitch it effectively.
Oh yeah, this is a classic.
What went wrong there?
Well, this writer had a truly unique concept for a sci-fi series. Really brilliant.
Okay.
But when they got in the room, they got so lost in the details of their world building.
All the little things.
The intricate backstories and complex plot twists that they forgot to actually highlight the core concept.
Ah, I see. It's that classic trap of getting so deep in your own creation, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Exactly. They were so focused on the individual leaves that they lost sight of the big picture.
So how did that actually play out in the meeting?
Well, instead of leading with the hook, the thing that would instantly grab the executive's attention, they just launched into this deep dive into the minutia.
Oh, no.
They talked about minor characters, subplots, even the specific technology of their fictional universe.
Like a lecture.
It was information overload.
Did Angela try to, steer them back on course?
He did. He tried to nudge them towards the core concept, the thing that would make the execs lean in and say, tell me more.
But it sounds like they weren't receptive.
They were so determined to convey every single detail that they missed the cues.
They were in their own world.
They even admitted afterward that they couldn't explain the concept without getting into all the intricate details.
So it wasn't just nerves or lack of preparation.
It was deeper than that.
It was a fundamental misunderstanding of what the pitch meeting was even for.
They were so focused on protecting their vision that they forgot about the goal of the meeting.
Which is to spark interest.
And get those execs excited about the potential.
Yeah, to make them want to be a part of it.
It's about collaboration, not control.
That is such a good lesson for anyone pitching anything.
It's not about showcasing every single detail. It's about highlighting the elements that will make the listener say, I need to hear more.
Less is more.
Sometimes the most powerful pitches are the ones that leave you wanting more.
Okay, I'm going to take that to heart. Let's move on to another case study. Angelo mentioned a colleague who completely misconstrued feedback and wanted to rewrite a drama as a spy show.
This one's a classic.
How on earth did that happen?
It all comes down to communication. Angelo and his colleague were pitching this really powerful drama series,
Okay.
and they got some notes from the executive.
Standard procedure.
The exec was using a popular spy show as an example,
To illustrate a point.
about maintaining a consistent genre format.
Okay, so far so good. It sounds like pretty standard feedback. Where did things go off the rails?
Angelo's colleague took the feedback literally.
Oh, no.
Instead of understanding the broader point about genre consistency, they thought they were being asked to completely transform their concept.
Into a spy thriller.
A full-blown genre swap.
I cannot even imagine.
They were so focused on the specific example that they missed the underlying message.
About staying true to the core concept.
Exactly. It's about understanding the spirit of the feedback, not just the literal words.
This highlights the importance of clarifying questions, doesn't it? Like, make sure you're actually understanding what they're trying to say.
It's a two-way conversation.
You're not just there to receive notes.
You're there to engage in a dialogue,
And to advocate for your vision.
while also being open to feedback.
It's a delicate balance.
It is. But it's a balance you can learn,
With practice.
and a good dose of self-awareness.
All right, these case studies are making me seriously rethink my own communication skills.
It's all a learning process.
Okay, let's move on to a case study that I think we can all relate to. You mentioned Angelo himself sweating profusely during a pitch meeting.
Oh, yeah, this one's a classic.
Spill the tea.
So Angelo's pitching to this network affiliate,
Okay.
and as he's getting into it, he starts sweating like crazy.
Oh, no, every pitcher's nightmare.
But it wasn't even nerves.
What was it then?
It was the blazing Burbank sun beaming directly onto him.
Yeah, that's brutal. Talk about a distraction.
He was literally melting.
So what did he do? Did he just try to ignore it and power through?
He tried, but it was getting out of control. He knew he had to address it.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
So right in the middle of his pitch, he stops, turns to the executives, and just says, "God damn, it's hot in here."
He didn't. I love that. What happened?
They burst out laughing. They apologized for the sauna-like conditions and even offered him a napkin to dry off.
That is the best possible outcome. I'm so glad they were cool about it.
A great example of how a little self-awareness and humor can go a long way.
It just breaks the tension.
It humanizes you.
Makes you relatable.
It shows you're not afraid to be yourself.
Okay, one final case study before we wrap things up. Angelo talks about a time when he landed not one but 2 pilot deals.
Which is amazing.
It's a huge accomplishment, but then neither of them went to series.
It's the heartbreak of Hollywood.
Did he ever talk about like what happened
Mm-hmm.
or what he learned from that experience?
He did. And it's really insightful.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So Angelo had put in years of work
Countless pitches.
and finally got the validation of not one, but 2 development deals.
That's incredible.
But as often happens in Hollywood,
Things don't always go as planned.
both projects stalled out during the development phase.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine the disappointment.
It was a major setback, and he's really honest about the emotional toll.
I bet. He probably questioned everything.
He did. He questioned his abilities, his choices.
Did he ever think about like just giving up?
He did. He even considered walking away from the industry entirely.
But he didn't.
He didn't. And that's what makes his story so powerful.
So what happened? What made him stay?
He took some time to process the disappointment, to reconnect with his love of storytelling.
To get back to his why.
Exactly. And he came back even stronger with a deeper understanding of how the business works.
It's like those setbacks fueled his determination
They gave him a new perspective.
and a renewed sense of purpose.
It's a reminder that even with all the hard work, the preparation, the being good in the room, there's still no guarantee of success.
That's the truth.
But as Angelo emphasizes, you can dramatically increase your chances by focusing on what is in your control.
Your craft, your relationships, your persistence, and your willingness to adapt.
And never giving up on your dreams.
This has been an incredible journey into Angelo Bell's world. We've explored his unique path to success, his insightful advice on crafting a killer pitch, and his honest reflections on the ups and downs of this crazy business.
It's been a wild ride.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Angelo talks about persistence, giving that extra 10-15%, making those connections, staying top of mind. But what if the real key to being good in the room is something even simpler? What if it's just about being authentically yourself?
That's a great question.
Letting your passion shine through, embracing your unique voice, and connecting with those executives on a human level.
Because at the end of the day, we're all just storytellers.
Trying to connect with an audience.
And sometimes the most powerful connection comes from just being real.
So be yourself, be prepared, and never stop telling your story.
Until next time. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.